Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to our show. I'm your host, John Harcar, and I'm here today with Zac Canull. And what we're going to talk about is how he helps folks build wealth through real estate. Guys, remember at Investor Fuel, we help real estate investors, service providers, all real estate entrepreneurs 2 to 5x their business by providing tools and resources to help grow the business they want to grow, to in turn live the life they've always dreamed of. So Zac, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the topic, right? You know, it's a thing that I know a lot of people maybe have thought about, but don't necessarily know how to do it. But before we talk about building wealth through real estate, give my audience a little bit background on you, kind of your journey in real estate. What got you here?
Yeah. So I'm based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I was born and raised in central Indiana, and I am actually a third generation realtor and a second generation investor. So
Okay.
I grew up around real estate. My dad was in the business for 53 years here in central Indiana.
Wow.
He built his own company and at one point had 30 agents, and they were property managing, I believe, about 300 properties. So, before I could even drive a car, my dad had me at his rental properties, painting and landscaping. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but I'm like, man, he had cheap labor back then.
Right. I was going to ask, how much work did you have to do for Pops on the free part?
Looking back, I wonder what I was getting paid back in the day. I'm sure it was, minimum wage back then or whatever,
Sure.
But it was a good experience. And, I think from a young age, my parents were really great about instilling just hard work and grit and, focus and, when you commit to do something, to follow through. So I think having me do some of that manual labor stuff and then also teaching me entrepreneurship from a young age, I took that experience with, painting houses for my dad's company. And, my best friend and I, we started a painting company. And, we were 14, so we didn't exactly know what we were doing. But
14?
we were probably 12, 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
And, we would get dropped off. We didn't have licenses yet. And we just paint all day, and then they'd come back and pick us up. So
Mr. Home Seller, you want us to come on Thursday? Well, I can't get dropped off at that time.
I'm still in school, actually.
Yeah, I'm in school that time.
So I'm only available in the afternoon. But no, I grew up around it, and I got into the business. Of course, sorry, my dog thought he wanted to be on the podcast too. I grew up around it, and I got my license back in 2014, and my older brother and I were helping run our dad's business, as he was kind of phasing into retirement. And knowing that he was kind of exiting the business in 2015, we decided to actually start our own brokerage.
Okay.
And, being literally only 1 year in the business for myself, luckily my brother.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
I'd been in the business for about 12 years at that point. It was a great experience just learning, how to start a brokerage and, hiring agents and the different things that, an agent might want from you as a broker. So I feel like I was exposed to that, growing up, and it helped me kind of just dive head into that.
Mm-hmm.
And, did residential sales for the first few years and started helping investors, I believe in 2017, started helping a couple buddies who had the idea they wanted to get involved with flipping, and, helped them find the deal, helped them manage the project a little bit, saw them make solid returns, a couple more investors. Okay, everyone seems to be making money around here. How do I get involved with this?
Right.
So 2019, I finally took the leap and bought my first flip. And what I learned, with that experience is I had no idea what I was doing. So I thought I did, figure, I'm a realtor, I can figure this out. But, learning the hard way and kind of just figuring out on my own, looking back, it's been an invaluable experience.
Right.
So I think this business, more so than in many others, you learn by the mistakes you make, and if you can turn your mistakes into lessons, then you continue to grow.
Yeah.
And to this day, I've done more than 40 flips. 23 of them were flipped and sold, and then the rest were flipped and held, and they're now rental properties. But each project has been its own learning lesson, and I've continued to kind of hone in my craft and figuring out what systems and processes work, what things don't work, where to spend money, what are things that maybe the end buyer really cares about, what are things that really add value. So
Sure.
it's really just been a great learning experience, and I think nowadays there's so much more information out there that we've almost crossed that threshold where there's too much information.
Yeah.
And there's too many calculators and methods, and there's bigger pockets,
Shiny objects.
they've got all these opinions, and convert them into lessons and be able to kind of hone my craft over the years. I've been very fortunate that I've had I had a great investor partner that I found late 2021. He and I built a 24-door rental portfolio from scratch. And, his faith in me to deliver on, being able to build this portfolio, has been huge for my career. And to this day, I still asset manage, with him, this portfolio. So I've gained a lot of experience from the rental side of the business, through working with him. And then I've had a great contractor partner through a lot of this, renovation and experience. And he and I have developed, a great system where we really kind of piggyback off each other in terms of designing space and picking finishes. And he's taught me so much about the anatomy of a home and just, design features and being able to look at space in just a different way. So I think, especially in a hot market like Indianapolis, Zillow named us the number 2 housing market in the country earlier this year. We were also named potentially the number 2 most competitive market.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
So what I think that's done is it's brought a lot of outside attention to the Indianapolis market. And to me, one of the key components of, real estate investing, especially when you're redesigning space, is being able to look at, maybe even a home on the market and being able to see what others don't in terms of potential of how to utilize a space, or, can I add a bedroom? Can I finish the basement? Does it make sense to do an addition? And being able to calculate very quickly, how much would it cost to make these improvements to make this home more appealing, or how much would it cost to renovate this home so that I can hit the highest possible potential, when it comes to trying to flip.
Sure.
So I'm very thankful that I've come across, wonderful partners that have taught me through their experience, what they're capable of doing, and it's helped transfer it into, me helping gain this experience, and then taking that experience and trying to elevate that to help my clients and my investor partners, really build wealth together.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've had a lot of influence in your life. Obviously, you mentioned that your father's in real estate for 53 years and your brother's in real estate. Tell me some of the challenges as you kind of progressed along your journey going, into retail or residential real estate, into flipping, into all that stuff. What are some of the obstacles or maybe mindset things you had to deal with or do to kind of keep that train going forward?
That's a great topic. So I think one of the toughest things for most investors getting in is having the confidence to take that leap to get started. There's so much information out there, and it's really easy for someone that maybe wants to get involved in real estate investing to get stuck in the analysis paralysis stage. There's just, you can read books, and you can, listen to podcasts, and you can attend webinars and seminars, and listen and assume that you're going to gain enough information that you'll feel confident. But the reality is, at a certain point, you just have to dive in. You have to take action, and you need to, take what you've learned from those that have done this before, and, develop a plan and then get in motion, because it's very easy for most investors, and even me as a realtor, working with investors, it's easy to talk about it. It's a whole nother thing to jump in the game and do it. And I think I learned from the beginning that it's very difficult as a realtor to get the investors to kind of trust your judgment if you're not investing yourself. So I think it was almost like, as I'm helping others, flip houses and, find rentals and whatnot, I find a great deal and I present it to an investor, and they might say, if it's such a good deal, why don't you do it yourself? And I think, at one point, kind of a light bulb went off, and I'm like,
maybe
you know what? Why don't I do this myself?
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity. And I think at a certain point, I found such a great deal. I thought to myself, well, I could, sell it to a client and, make the 3% or whatever the commission was, or, there's $100,000 margin on this project. Maybe this is something I should try to figure out how to do myself. And I think that experience on the investment side of the business is everything. Everyone's read books, everyone's theoretically flipped a home in their mind, or watched HGTV or whatever, but doing it yourself and having to go through the process and jump the hurdles that come up and gain that experience firsthand, to me, that that's an invaluable, skill set. And I think one thing I've learned here is that for all the realtors that we have, Indianapolis probably has 7,000 realtors or more. A very small portion of them are also active investors.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
And, there's this almost like unintentional gatekeeping of information, I think, from all the really experienced investors, because if we told everyone the secret of how to do it, then it'd be just harder for us to do it too.
Right.
So it's, it's this balance of, I like sharing, the information and helping others, get involved with real estate investing. But nothing really beats experience when it comes to working with someone, that can provide deals and analysis and can help guide you as an investor. Or, something that I've kind of leaned into the last 6 months or so is working on leveraging partnerships with investors in a more passive manner.
Okay.
And can I create relationships, with investors that want a passive investment where they're putting capital in and they don't have to do anything else. They wait until the project's over, they get their money back plus a return, and they don't have to worry about the day-to-day and, the contractor situations and, the steep learning curve that comes with, learning how to flip or learning how to build a rental portfolio. It's not something you can just read a book and dive right in. You kind of have to work your way up, start with the lowest, small projects, mostly cosmetic, and then kind of work your way up over time, not only with the amount of work you're doing, but I think also price ranges. You don't want to dive in and just buy $1 million house and assume flip it. A lot of people start with $100,000 house and kind of work their way up, and eventually you hit a barrier and, okay, well, let's go for duplexes. Let's go for fourplexes. Let's trade that up for a small apartment building. That turns into commercial. And people kind of work their way up. I think that there's, like you said, there's a lot of information out there. It's important to leverage that experience. And I think finding either a mentor or an experienced investor to work with, or, a network like you guys have, at Investor Fuel, seems like such a great opportunity for those that, either want to get started or take the small amount of experience they have and kind of leverage that to the next level. You really need to have those that have done it before show you how to do it.
And I like what you said about the, having that experience investing as a realtor. Because it also adds credibility, right? Like you mentioned, if an investor goes to a realtor and they say, they haven't done any investing, it doesn't land with as much weight what they say or their information or advice as if with you, if you've done the projects, it lands a little bit better. Why do you think there are so few realtors that actually do the investing part?
I think some of it comes down to maybe just the availability of education on the investment side. From what I've seen, I started my career at an independent brokerage, so I had no idea what was really going on with the bigger brokerages. Now, I'm currently working with Keller Williams, biggest brokerage in the world. They actually have a wealth of knowledge and information available in terms of investing, but it seems like a lot of the big brokerages, and medium and small, and basically just most brokerages in general, they don't teach you that side of the business. It seems like most are concentrated on, just the residential side and how to lead generate, how to work your sphere, and how to do open houses, and, proper techniques for listing a home. And there's nothing wrong with all that, but it almost seems like there's a gap in, maybe the information available, or helping people get from information to action. So, at least from my experience, that's what I feel like I've seen. I think a lot of realtors maybe don't know that opportunity's there, because they started just working residential. And I think over the last few years, it's become apparent that investors are a much bigger part of the marketplace. And I feel like, maybe a NAR statistic recently was, cash buyers are somewhere near the 33% of all transactions now. So in my thought process, if you're not an investor and you don't work with investors, that are purchasing cash, as a realtor, how could you, service your clients in the best manner if you don't understand how cash buyers operate, when they are now 1 in 3 buyers.
Yeah.
So, I think it's incredibly important that realtors, take that time to dive into the investment side of the business. Not to say that it's right for every single one to, flip or do that themselves, but you still have the data available to learn how to analyze an investment property. And even in the MLS, we have access to all the data, necessary to analyze a deal. It's really just taking the time to learn that, that skill set.
Well, and I like what you said too about, them not really being able to service their client, because there might be a lot of times when they come to a realtor and their property really isn't best fit for a online or a on market type of thing, where it might need a lot of work. And if they have that investor connection, right, they could better serve their client. Maybe it's a short time frame or a distress type of situation, right? So it really helps them. So what do you think a lot of your keys to success have been in your journey, right? Because it looks like you've kind of scaled up. You got into investing. You're doing other things. You have rentals. What are some of the key success points, resources, or mindset tools that you used to kind of keep that everything going forward?
Well, I think first of all, mindset in real estate and entrepreneurship and business in general, mindset is everything. And especially the journey of learning how to flip from kind of scratch, or learning the hard way, without the mentorship, that I think is incredibly important. I think that being able to take those losses or mistakes that you make and considering the big picture and converting those into lessons, that's all mindset. It's easy for anyone to, let's say you flip your first house, maybe it takes you 6 months, and in the end, if you break even, you spend all that time and effort, it would be really easy to say, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
It's too risky. I don't want to do this. And I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that do that. But the reality is, I would assume most flippers lose on their first deal, because they didn't have that experience. So I think just having the mindset of understanding the big picture, setting goals and focusing on what can I achieve in 5 years or 10 years, and not just what did I do on this one project. I think to me that's been an invaluable part of why I've kept going when maybe, I've been down after a project or after something that popped up and we didn't expect. But the reality is, okay, what can we learn from this?
Right.
How can I take this experience and make sure I don't make the same mistake again? And I think as long as you can focus on that and stay with a positive mindset of, okay, this happened, how can I learn from it and how can I move forward and just keep going?
Yeah.
So I think mindset number one has been, everything. I think another big thing is positioning yourself to find great partners to work with. I've been very fortunate, to find great investor partners, great contractors, other realtors and other investors, and, being a part of real estate masterminds and, seeking mentorship. I've had, I've been involved with Tom Ferry
Mm-hmm.
coaching, for the last about 6 years now. And, I think my coach is honestly getting closer to being my therapist than he is. So, having an outside third party perspective has been crucial for me to be able to kind of think through some of the different partnerships that I've developed
Yeah.
over the years, and relying on someone else that isn't giving me their opinion based on, well, if I lean this direction, they might make a couple more
Yeah.
bucks. My coach has really that outside view. He's been a crucial part of me being able to develop both my residential side of my business, but also my investments. And then, I think overall, I am. I've always been, very interested in the idea of being kind of the knowledge broker. I got involved with, there's a company out there called KCM, it's Keeping
Mm-hmm.
Current Matters. They've been huge with talking about becoming the knowledge broker and understanding that, real estate investing, but also just being a realtor in general, there's a lot of things that are constantly changing, and understanding how to leverage, the changing
Sure.
technologies or the changes in laws and rules, and, how buyers are, have access to properties or 3D tours and all these, things. I think if one thing is constant, it is change, and being able to, stay educated, what's going on, and being willing to change with the technology and or whatever else is changing. I think that has been crucial for myself and, my business partners to be able to help our clients. Is we try to stay involved with what's coming up next. How can we leverage AI,
Yeah.
for example, to help, you know, either find deals in the future or analyze properties or help design, you know, stay in contact with, with customers. There's a ton of uses for AI. And I think just being able to stay in front of all those things, I think that's also been, uh, you know, a huge part for me of being able to compete with other large
Sure.
teams or more experienced brokers or whatever. Just trying to stay knowledgeable and, be able to help educate my clients or my investor partners with what I've
Keeping
learned.
up with the Joneses. And it's funny you say that, the AI, one of the big topics at our mastermind coming up here in May is AI for real estate investors. So yeah, it's all about knowledge. It's all about, continuing to grow and go learn with the trends. What advice would you give to somebody that was looking to get into real estate now, whether it's residential real estate, whether it's flipping, whether it's investing? I mean, what kind of tools, resources, or advice would you give out?
Well, I think the first thing is do your research. Not just real estate investing in general, but definitely do your research on the potential partners that you
Yeah.
might use. I don't think people talk about that enough. This is a business, it's kind of a dog eat dog situation. So you have to be careful. Let's just say, for example, with the contractor partner you choose, there's a ton of, theft and fraud, and a contractor might say, yeah, we need a 50% draw up front. And, maybe you give them the money and all of a sudden they
Yeah,
disappear. And that kind of stuff
all the
happens
time.
all the time. Same with lending partners. It's different if you're using a large company, or a conventional means of financing. But you start working with private lenders, uh, you know, if you don't have some sort of legal counsel double checking the contracts you're using, You know, you don't know what you might be signing or what sort of clauses are stuck in those contracts, and you might have a lot of hidden fees that you didn't know
Mm-hmm.
were there. So I think, you know, do your research, you know, on the partners you're getting involved with. Have a plan. You know, don't just dive head in like I did and not have an idea what you're doing. You know, create a business plan, you know, talk to contractors, have the relationships in place before you start. And I think seek a mentor, you know, find someone that's been in the business, whether it's a realtor or an investor group, you know, like Investor Fuel, um, you know, utilize their
Yeah.
experience and understand that you know, it's not just a guessing game. They've done it before, and if they're willing to share that information with you, leverage their experience, you know, so you're avoiding what can be a very steep and expensive learning
Or
curve.
mistakes.
And I think, yeah, and I think, you know, the last thing I think that's super important is just once you have all your ducks in a row, take action. You know, you know, Tom Ferry coaching, one of the things that they always say is action solves everything. It's so easy to get stuck on the sidelines and, you know, be waiting for times to be perfect or this perfect deal or rates to come down or, you know, all these different scenarios. And the reality is, if you're waiting for the perfect scenario, you'll
Nope.
never get it.
Mm.
And you'll just be talking about it. And, you know, 10 years from now, you'll think, wow, I wish I would have bought a bunch of property because homes have doubled again in
Right.
value. So I think, you know, do your research, but at the same time, you know, take
Yeah.
that leap, jump in, you know, do your first deal, try to mitigate your risk as much as possible, but with no risk comes no
Yeah.
reward. So, you know, you have to be willing to take a little
That's
risk.
fantastic advice, guys. I hope you guys had your pen and paper out and took some notes right there. Uh, if guys want to get a hold of you, if people want to reach out and talk to you, maybe they have a deal in Indiana or Indianapolis area, they want to do some business with you, how do they get in touch?
The best way to get a hold of me is by phone, cell phone number 317-496-3632. I'm also very active on social media, so you can find me on Facebook, Zac Canull, or you can look up the Canull Group, and that's Canull. And or you can find me on Instagram at Close with Canull. Again, that's
Perfect.
Canull.
And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, that'll all be there. Guys, I hope you took some of the notes I have. I mean, I'm looking at my paper right now, and it's just I'm trying to it's a little scribbly because I'm trying to write and talk at the same time. But Zach, you brought some fantastic information. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You know, Zach, thanks again, and I'll see you guys on the next show. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.